I'm sure everybody is familiar by now with Zoom. Let me repeat, my name is Uwe Mester, Course 360. I'm intending to do a movement lesson today of about 35-40 minutes. That will be done on the floor. And then we have about 5 to 10 minutes using some of the movements that we've done on the floor, on the chair. And then my intention is to open the room up for question and answers for people that have around the movements, around like the use of the chair, and any other thing that you might be interested about Course 360. And it is helpful for me if some people have put already the camera on. That is very helpful because I will verbally guide you through a series of movements. I will not do the movements in front of you. So it is helpful. I see some people adjusting the camera. The movements will be done on the floor. If I see some people moving on the floor, not everybody has to put the camera on, but a few people is helpful to me. And then I will ask you that we're going to start the lesson, that you start in standing. You don't have to need to adjust your camera again. Just get yourself up from the chair and stand in your room and take a moment just to sense how you're standing over your feet. Like, how balanced do you feel? If you can, don't look at the camera because that changes again, like how you hold your head. Just look forward. If you can, look outside, like on a horizontal line somewhere. And just pay attention for a moment to the pressure underneath your feet, how much pressure you feel towards the back of your feet, towards the heels, and how much weight is there towards the front of the heels, towards where the toe area is. Notice if you have more weight with the heels or towards the toes, and it might be different. Maybe in one foot it's different from the other, or maybe you can sense that sometimes we can sense it more clearly, sometimes not. And just notice for a moment, if you would stand like this for, let's say, 10-15 minutes, could you stand comfortably? When we have a posture that feels comfortable for us, it also feels more or less balanced, that we don't feel we are tipping over or we are leaning back too much. Without making any changes, just notice how it is right now for you. And if you feel you would not be able to stand or you would have to change something, where would you feel like it would show up, like the discomfort or that you feel you have to make a change? Just make yourself like a mental note, because at the end of the lesson, we'll come back into standing. We want to see if something has changed through the movements in the way how you stand, in the way how your posture is. Good. Now, get yourself down on the floor. And if you can, lay down on your back. And lay on your back with your arms long down at your side. And if it is comfortable for you, you can stretch out your legs. If it is not comfortable for you, then you can keep your knees bent and place your feet on the floor, just that it is somewhat comfortable. If you need a little support behind your head, because you feel your head is hanging backwards, then just have like a folded towel or something that you place there. So it's not too elevated, so not a big cushion, just something if you feel you need something there. And we're going to take a moment to just to sense your contact with the floor right now. When you are on your back, just sense how much of your back is resting on the floor. Where are the points where you feel a lot of contact with the floor? For many people, they will feel that the back of their pelvis and their buttocks makes contact with the floor. Just get a sense here. How much weight is there in your buttocks? And then when you travel with your attention in the direction of your lower back, you may discover that when you have your legs long, that the lower back does not touch the floor or very little touch the floor. And get a sense for how much space is there between the lower back and the floor. If you feel you cannot extend your legs without discomfort, then keep them bent, but then your lower back most likely will touch the floor. And then travel with your attention a little bit further up towards your chest and notice how much of your chest is resting on the floor. And your shoulders, do your shoulder blades make contact with the floor? And when you pay close attention, you may feel differences between the sides, like how much the right shoulder feels in contact with the floor, how much the left shoulder feels in contact with the floor. And there's nothing to be concerned about. We all have differences that we accumulate over our lifetime through our history. We have injuries, and we hold ourselves in the best way we can. Notice also your arms and legs, and how comfortable is it to lay on the back like this. Throughout the lesson, we'll come back to this position, being on the back. And I want you to pay attention if something through the movement that you're going to do will change. So now please, everybody, bend your knees and stand your feet about shoulder width apart, comfortable. And now very slowly, making the smallest movement that you can make, think you wanted to lean a bit into your feet, just like a little bit, so that you feel your pelvis will get a little bit lighter in contact with the floor. So you press a bit with your feet, and then you just let go of that. Just a very small movement. And when you make a very small movement, you can think that your tailbone and your sits bones, the parts that you're sitting on, are lifting a tiny bit, and that your pelvis rolls the slightest bit so that your lower back flattens a bit. So it's not like lifting your whole pelvis yet. It's just like a very small movement of pressing very lightly into the floor and rolling over your pelvis a bit, like that your lower back flattens. And then you just let go of that. So just making a small pressing into the feet, rolling the pelvis a little bit upwards in the direction of your head, and then let go. And then very slowly and gradually, see if you can increase the leaning into your legs, and that you can begin to lift your pelvis a bit away from the floor, just enough that your pelvis is not, the back of your pelvis is not touching the floor anymore. And then you gradually and slowly bring the pelvis back. You pause a moment, and then you start again to lean into your legs and to lift your pelvis the slightest bit. And notice when you begin to lift your pelvis, that different parts of your backside begin to press into the floor. You feel that different areas take more of the weight and support you. And when you bring your pelvis back down, it shifts back. Just pay attention to how this happens. And notice if you press equally into both feet, or do you favor a little bit one leg, one foot? It's not uncommon that people press more into one foot or another. We all have certain movement habits that we have established over our lifetime, and it also shows up in a simple movement like this. Good. Now, leave that and just don't press into your feet anymore. You can keep your knees bent, just like they are. And then interlace your hands and place your interlaced hands behind your head. And make sure that the interlaced hands are behind your head so that your head fully rests in your hands. So it's not in your neck, it's really behind your head. And you begin to lift both elbows forwards in the direction of the ceiling, and then you lower them just a few times, like lifting the elbows as far as is easy. And notice when you lift your elbows that something happens around your shoulders, around your shoulder blades. Do you feel a movement there? Do you feel a movement in your upper back? And then keep your elbows lifted, pointing more towards the ceiling. And begin to lift With the help of your arms and hands and your back, begin to lift your head the slightest bit and look down in between your legs as you lift your head. So there is like a feeling like that you're not pulling hard on your head with your hands, but have the idea that when your head begins to lift, that something of your back, something in your chest, something in your lower back presses more into the floor, and you can exhale as you lift, and then you lower the head again and you pause a moment. And then the next time when you exhale, you lift your head, you look down in between your legs as you lift, and feel when you lift your head that other areas of your back begin to press more into the floor. Which areas come down, press more into the floor? And if you can lean even more into those areas. And by using your back like that, notice if it feels easier to lift your head. Always bring the head back, pausing a moment. And when you're ready, you lift your head again with the help of your arms and hands, slowly, gently. Good. And then leave all that and bring your arms out. If it is comfortable for you, extend your legs. If it's not comfortable, you keep your knees bent and just pause a moment. So in Feldenkrais, we pay a lot of attention to how we do movements. It's not a question of how many repetitions you do, but on the quality of the movement. And we want to find the relationships. What happens if this part of myself, if I move this part, how does that relate to other parts of myself? And when you sense yourself in the way how your backside rests on the floor, notice if after just these few movements that you've done, one time you lifted your pelvis a bit and brought it back down, then you lifted your head and you brought it back. If the contact that you feel that your backside makes with the floor, if that has changed already a bit. Good. Now, please bend both knees again and interlace your hands again and place them behind your head as you did before, and lift your elbows towards the ceiling. And this time, I would like you to find a way to very slowly to lift your head and your pelvis at the same time. You exhale, you look down and you press a little bit into your feet, you lift your pelvis and you lift your head at the same time. And then you slowly lower both your head and the pelvis at the same time. Make a small movement, not the biggest movement that you can do, the smallest movement, where you can still feel that something, when you lift the head and the pelvis, then something has to move backwards in the direction of the floor, and sense which part of your back presses more into the floor. See that you exhale and that you look in between your legs. That's right. So making a small movement. And coordinate the lifting of the pelvis with the lifting of the head. And feel how your front side becomes shorter, and that your back side on your back feels as if it gets longer. Create that image for yourself, like that the front side shortens a bit and that the back side gets longer. In the rounding, it gets longer. That's right. That's nice. Good. And then just leave that, pause again, bring your hands out and rest a moment. And we do these pauses not because we think you're already so exhausted, but to give yourself like a break with your attention, also that your nervous system that controls and organizes the movement has time to register what just happened. If we move very quickly from one movement into the next movement, we don't give ourselves enough time to sense differences. Yeah, good. Now, bend both knees again, stand the feet, interlace your hands again and place them behind your head, as you did before. Lift your elbows. Now, lift again both your press into the feet, lift your pelvis, lift your head. And now, as you begin to lower only your head down to the floor, as the pelvis lifts a little bit further, and then slowly you begin to lower your pelvis while your head begins to lift. And then as you lower the head, you begin to lift your pelvis again. So it's like a teeter-totter, like one part comes up while the other part comes down. You keep your elbows pointing forwards, you keep breathing and go slowly. So you're not getting into an exercise mode, but that you're getting into a place where you can pay attention to how the pressure behind your backside shifts. Notice when you lift, when you lower the head and the head comes all the way down, lays on the floor, notice that the pelvis is lifted higher up. More of your weight and the pressure is shifted towards the back of your chest, towards your shoulders. And when you begin to lower the pelvis, that is the moment when the head begins to lift and the pressure shifts more towards your lower ribs, towards your lower back, the head and the shoulders lift, so that you feel there it's like a shift of emotion, like, you know, behind your backside, rocking upwards and downwards, very slowly, very lightly, within a range that's easy. So as you lift your pelvis, you lower the head, and then as you lower the head, the pelvis lifts. As you lower the head, as you lower the pelvis, the head lifts. So it's like a teeter-totter there. That's good. And then just leave that. Bring your arms down. If it is comfortable, you can extend your legs. And just notice from this little rocking behind your backside, if you have a different sense of how your backside rests on the floor. The feeling around your shoulders, the feeling around your pelvis, your lower back, that space behind the lower back and the floor. Does it feel the same? Do you feel more arched? Do you feel less arched? Good. And then I would like you to roll to get into a different position. The position will be on your hands and knees. So you roll over and get onto your hands and knees. If you need some cushioning underneath the knees, have a little blanket there and arrange it so that your knees are underneath your hip joints and that your arms are long and that your hands are underneath your shoulders and your arms are straight. If there's a strain in your wrist and you can't do that, you can make fists and lean on the fists instead. If that is still challenging for you, you can be on your forearms. Good. Now, we're not going to stay a long time in this position, but just begin now. So your legs are about hip width apart, the hands are hip width apart, so that you really have your knees underneath your hips and your hands underneath your shoulders. And you begin to make a movement that you pull your belly in, you round your back, and you have that sense as if your whole back begins to round. The whole back begins to round. Also, like the area in between your shoulder blades, that part rounds up towards the ceiling. And then you make a movement of letting your belly come down towards the floor, push it out a bit, lift your head, and have the idea that if you would have a tail growing out of your tailbone, that you lift your tail and that your back arches a bit. That's right. And then slowly you round yourself again. You look down in the direction of your belly button, and you have that sense of rounding over the entire length of your spine. So not just like your lower back, but also what happens in between the shoulders. And then gradually you move in the opposite direction. You push your belly out. You lift your tail, you lift your head, and your sternum comes forwards in the direction of the floor and sinks a bit. And you allow the belly to be full and round. And then you gradually move in the opposite direction. So you may know that motion from like some yoga practices called like cat and cow, but I want you to pay in particular attention to the entire rounding of your spine and the extension of your spine. And you bring attention to the parts that move the least, where you feel, is there movement in my chest? An area that for many people don't move as much. Many people have movement in their lower back and in their neck. But what happens in my chest? Is my chest moving? Good. And then just leave that and lay down on your back again and take a rest on your back. If you feel at any point this is like a position that's not comfortable for you, or it is too long to be in a certain position, please feel free to take an earlier rest. Yeah. It makes no sense for you to, or your system, your nervous system is learning best when it is at a place where it is comfortable. This is maybe something that you have not heard before, but because we are so, as a culture, prone to push ourselves to the limit. But the only thing that you can learn from pushing yourself to the limit is like you have to back off, right? You always have to back off. And we want to learn in Feldenkrais and then later in the chair to be in a more balanced place where we are not at the limit of our abilities, but in a range that's easy for us. And that is a place where we can learn best, where we have movement possibilities still in one direction, in the other direction, and we are not pushing it to the limit. Good. Now, notice if the way how you are resting on the floor, if that feels different again. Good. And then roll yourself over onto your belly. And if you can, have your legs long and place your forehead on the floor and extend your arms overhead so that your palms are on the floor. Your arms are long, as high overhead as you can bring them easily. You keep your arms there. And now slowly begin to keep your arms down and see if you can lift the head the slightest bit. Just you're on your belly, your forehead is on your belly, exactly, your arms are extended. And notice when you lift your head, most of us lift our head by using a lot the muscles of our neck. Stay like that, or lift the head just as far as you can lift it easy and just see how far is that easy. And then stop it. And then bring the head back down. And with your eyes closed, just begin to make a movement of your eyes, slowly looking upwards towards your eyebrows without lifting the head, and then looking downwards as if you wanted to look towards your cheekbones. Moving your eyes up and down slowly. Just see how, can you notice when you move your eyes, a slight sensation in the back of your neck there. The movement of the eyes are very important for our overall organization of movement, and they inform our whole body how to move. Our eyes usually move first, and then it sends a signal to our brain, and then coordination of movements will happen based on the intention that we have. Now, slowly begin to lift your head again with the intention to look up and see if that makes a difference in how you can lift your head now when you look up. If it is a little bit easier after you have done these little exercises with the eyes, looking up and down, if the lifting of the head is a bit easier. And notice when you lift your head, what presses more into the floor? Can you press the lowest part of your belly, like below your navel? Can you push that into the floor? And by doing that, you engage your extensor muscles, and you may feel that the lifting of the head feels a little bit easier. See if you can have that image, how it's not just lifting of your head, but that your whole spine becomes part of the movement. And you feel that motion, that you have that sense, your spine gets really long in the back, and you push it. That's right. And then just leave that and pause a moment. And you can pause. You can bring your arms to a more comfortable place if you wish. You could turn your head, just like pause a moment. If you can on your belly, if it's not comfortable, then you roll yourself onto your side for a moment. Good. And then come back onto your belly with your forehead down and your arms extended. And now find a way to lift your shoulders and your upper back away from the floor, but not your head. Actually, begin to look down in directions, if you wanted to look underneath yourself towards your belly button, and you let your forehead rub a bit on the floor so it moves in the direction of your hairline, and your chin comes closer to your throat as you lift your shoulders. Lift your shoulders away from the floor as the chin comes closer to your throat, and you look down, and then you just let go of that. It's an unusual movement. Lifting the shoulders, letting the back of the neck become long, the front side shortens a bit, and your chin comes closer to your throat, and you look down. That's right. And then from that position, you begin to move in the opposite direction. You begin to push your belly out. You lift your head, you look up, but you bring your shoulders down. Bring your shoulders, your armpits closer to the floor as you lift your head. And then you lower the head, you lift your shoulders, you look underneath yourself. So the armpits move away from the floor. And then gradually you lower the armpits, the shoulders, you lift your head, you push the belly out. So you alternate again, like between extension movement, lifting your head, keeping the arms down. And then as you lower the head, you look down, you roll, you bring the back of the neck comes long, and you look downwards. And it is actually a little bit of a rounding action that happens. In an unusual position, doing a rounding motion, being on the belly is not something we are familiar with. And you alternate gently between these two movements, paying attention to which parts of your back are really engaged, of your spine, if you think of your spine. Good. And then leave that and roll over onto your back and rest on your back. And you can either have your legs long, or if it's more comfortable for you, to bend your knees. Just feel now how you're resting, how much of your back is resting on the floor, of your chest. Notice also the breathing without changing anything. Just feel where in yourself do you feel the movement as you breathe in and out. Is there any movement in your chest? Is there movement in your belly? Without wanting to change it, just paying attention. And then bend both knees again and interlace your hands again. Place them behind your head. So we come to a position like you did before. You lift your elbows towards the ceiling. And a few times, begin without lifting the head, just begin to lift and lower your pelvis away from the floor, pressing into your feet. Just see, how is it now to lift your pelvis away from the floor? With the idea that when you lift your pelvis, that the support shifts on your backside more upwards in the direction of your ribs, direction of your shoulders. Notice if the quality of how you can lift your pelvis, if that has been affected by the movements from before, if it is easier, different, harder. Good. Now leave your pelvis down and a few times lift and lower your head and pay attention that your chest, have that image that your chest can fold and that your lower back moves down to the floor, your lower ribs, your lower back is the part that gives you the support to lift your head. So you're not pulling hard with your hands and arms on the head. You think of more what comes back and down. And you look in between your legs, because if you don't look in between your legs, you will stiffen your neck. We can test that out. Actually, everybody look up to the ceiling and keep your eyes fixed to the ceiling and then lift your head and see how that immediately stiffens your neck. The way how we look or where we look has a huge impact on the movement. Notice that. Look up towards the ceiling, keep staring at the ceiling and see what it does to the feeling in the neck. And then the next time when you lift your head, look intentionally in between your legs and see what that does to your neck. Well, there's a lot of implications to that. If you think about like where in our real life, how often we fix with our eyes on a certain part, in particular on screens. And if we don't move, you know, how we also stiffening our neck quite a bit. Good. Now leave that and just keep your knees bent. Just bring the hands out for a moment. Just pause for a moment. We're going to explore this relationship also, like how the eyes move, how that affects the whole posture and the movement in a moment when we're sitting in the chair. But it is helpful to do these movements on the floor where we have feedback. We can use the floor as a feedback system, like a kinesthetic mirror that gives information about ourselves. Now, interlace your hands again behind your head. Lift your elbows. And this time you go back to that motion where you alternately lift and lower your pelvis. So when you can start wherever you want. So you can lift your head first and the pelvis is down. And the moment when you begin to lower the head, that's the moment when you begin to lift your pelvis. And you lift the pelvis as high as you can as the head continues to come down all the way down. And then as you lower your pelvis, you gradually begin to lift the head so that you feel that rocking, like it's like a teeter-totter motion along your backside. Different parts begin to press into the floor and give you the support. Yeah, you have the support from your feet, you have the support from different parts of your back, of your chest, and you breathe easily. That's right. And then, is that different from before when you first started it? Good. And then leave that. Extend your arms and legs and rest and feel. Now we are at the end of our little exploration on the floor. Feel what is different for you in the feeling of yourself when you rest on the floor now. So you get yourself into the same position as you were at the beginning so you can better compare if something has changed. Notice when you sense your backside, are there parts that feel heavier or more grounded to the floor, where you don't feel like so much like of increased muscle tonus there? How long does the back feel? How long do you feel in general now? And when you think of your spine, which parts of the back of your spine do you feel are making contacts with the floor? Is this a little bit more comfortable than it was at the beginning when you got yourself down to the floor or not? And how has that affected how you sense your breathing? Good. Now, slowly, really take your time to slowly roll yourself over one side and come up to sit. And take your time. When you sit, just take a moment to orient yourself, your room. And when you're ready, you slowly get yourself up into standing so that you can stand, ideally in the same place where you were standing before at the beginning when I asked you down. And notice now, after this movement exploration, because it wasn't really like it was more a workout of your attention. It was more a workout of bringing attention to yourself and informing yourself of more parts and how they can relate and move relative to each other. Notice how you are standing now, your sense of balance, how upright you feel, the sense of weight underneath your feet. How much is it to the front of the feet? How much is it to the back of your feet? Do you feel in any way different from the beginning in your posture? Could you stand like this for a longer period? Or do you feel you would have to change something right away because it feels uncomfortable? Good. And then walk around in your room a bit and see that you get yourself, if you have a Core 360 chair, that you get that ready. If not, you can also use a firm chair, like a wooden chair that is ideally relatively flat. But just get ready for that. So part of good posture or comfortable posture is to find a balance between the flexor muscles in the front. The flexor muscles let us round ourselves, and the extensor muscles that erect ourselves. The extensor muscles are in the back. And the more we find a balance between the front and the back, the more upright we feel, and the more we also feel the head is being carried from underneath. Now, please everybody sit down on your Core 360 on the chair and find yourself a position where you feel you're sitting. That I know some people prefer to have the chair a little bit, bring the chair a notch lower than you usually would, in a way that your knees are still slightly higher than your hips, but maybe not as high. I know some people prefer to be sitting very high. And how can you tell if your knees are lower than your hips? Is one way is if you imagine a little ping pong ball that would be placed on your thigh bone, would it roll in the direction of your knees? And then you know, okay, my knees are lower than my hips a bit. And now, very slowly, you place one hand on top of your head, either the right or the left. Doesn't matter, you can start on either side. And the other hand you place onto the back of your lower back so that it's kind of like with the knuckles against the middle of your lower back, if you can. Just like that. Good. And now very slowly, like with the same form of attention, you begin to rock with your chair a little bit backwards. So you're rolling backwards and you round your back and you lower your head just a bit, that you feel your lower back is rounded. It rounds in the direction of the hand is in the lower back. And you look down in between your legs and you can pull your belly in slightly. That's good. And now you begin to push your belly out. You begin to lift your head and you begin to look up and you feel how there's an arching happening throughout your entire length of the spine. And you feel like how the pelvis rocks a little bit forwards, the chair rocks a little bit forwards, that forward motion is possible there. And then you all come back to rounding. You rock with your chair a little bit backwards, as if you are rolling towards your back pockets. Your lower back rounds, your chest folds, and you don't go to the limit. You do what you can do easily. And then when you round, you pull your belly in. And when you go into an extension, you push your belly out. Push the lowest part of the belly out and feel how that helps you to erect your entire spine and that your chest opens up a bit and you look up overhead a bit. That's right. And you alternate between these two movements with the attention to the entire length of your spine and that the pelvis rolls and rocks there and that your head lifts and lowers. So there are moments when you pull your belly in and when you push your belly out. Yeah? So we are not staying in a fixed position, like pulling the belly in the whole time wouldn't help us. Like we want to be able to pull it in, but also to push it out if needed. When we want to do an extension movement, it's very helpful to push the belly out. Good. Now leave that and take your hands down and just pause a moment. And just notice how you are sitting on your chair. What's your posture like? If you have a different sense of being more in balance, like that there's like how much you feel your back side, how much you feel your front side. Yeah. And then come back and change over your hands. So you place the other hand on top of your head and the other hand onto your lower back, and you explore that same motion here, rocking backwards. Think of you can use that, the chair allows that rocking forwards and backwards. And you go slowly, you rock backwards and you round yourself. And think also like how your chest, how your breastbone could fold a bit. And then when you move in the opposite direction, you roll with your pelvis forward, you push your lower part of the belly out, you feel like a lengthening through yourself, and the head comes back, you look up, and then you round again. And notice how your eyes are moving along with the movement. Yeah? Your eyes inform again yourself of when to round. It is very difficult to move the eyes in the opposite direction, but we can do it, just like to show you the impact of the eyes. The next time when you round yourself, try to look up and notice it is not easy. And when you extend yourself, begin to look down. You may notice that, oh, the head and the eyes are not coordinated with each other in the way they are used to. So it's difficult, it's hard. And then go back into letting the eyes and the head move in the same direction. So when you lower the head, you pull your belly in, you rock backwards. And when you push your belly out, you rock forward, you feel that extension through your spine, through your chest. For many of you, you do a lot of movement in your neck and in your lower back. Think that your chest, your breastbone could move, that it can fold and that it come forward and up, so that we bring this central part of ourselves into the movement. Yeah? We often overuse our neck and our lower back because we are not moving our chest. Good. And then take your hands down and just sense how you are sitting on the chair. If you feel a little bit more balanced, and if you have this place and you would work from this place, this more balanced place, if it would be more comfortable. Good. Now let's see if also these movements that you've done on the chair, if they have made a difference in how you stand. So just get yourself up again and just feel your sense of balance in standing. Does it feel different? Do you feel more upright, more rounded, or just at a different place? Good. And then leave that, walk around a bit and I'm gonna open the floor up like for questions and that came up for you, or you maybe want to report about your experience and or questions that you have around the chair. Let me also mention, we at Course 360, it is important for us to get feedback from the people and to help you at your home. So I do free private consultations with people who have bought a Course 360. And you can sign up at our website for a free consultation with me, 30 minutes, so I can help you to answer your personal questions, but also questions that you may have, like in how to design your or how to set the right height for your workplace, the screen, and all those things. Let me also mention we're going to have 2 more these movement explorations. We're going to have one. You found it on the schedule, or you can sign up for the others as well. The next one will be that we are focusing on side bending motion, and then we have the last one where we do more rotational movements. So today was more like a global rounding and extension movement and finding balance in that. Do you have questions, things that came up for you? Everybody's familiar with how to unmute themselves, I assume by now. Manju, I hope I pronounce that right? Yeah?
Yes. Uwe, when I have my core chair the lowest, my knees are still below my hips.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what I think you said, that you want your knees to be a bit higher than?
No. If I said that, then I have mispronounced. No, that you want still that the knees are slightly lower than the hips, but not that the distance is so big. Yeah.
Okay, just
So
right.
in a way, even if you bring it for you, if you bring it to your lowest setting and your knees are still lower than your hips, in a way, you cannot do anything wrong. You will have to find when you work later, like in at your home, to find a position that is very comfortable for you in terms of the height. And that depends on your work desk, also of your screen. And there's nothing wrong with varying the height once in a while. So if you feel like, oh, I want to lower it or I want to bring it higher up, that is good. Like our body loves variation. It loves, like, not being in the same place all the time. But thanks for your question.
Thank you.
Are there other questions or anything that happened that was new to you when you were doing the exercises where people, from the people that I could see on the screen, I think most of people were able to follow the directions very well. I hope that it worked for you. And do you have other questions? There's Tom raised his hand. Tom, do you have a question?
Hi, yeah. I loved the exercises. I mean, they were so simple, but you really do get a lot of awareness doing them.
Right.
Is this a typical sort of thing that one could repeat? I
Right.
mean, is this a standard exercise, or is it
These
some
are,
sort of introductory thing?
I teach every week online classes. Like what I taught you at the beginning, this is open for everybody, not only for people who have a Core 360 chair, are movement exercises from the Feldenkrais method. And we have literally over a Feldenkrais practitioner can teach you over hundreds of different lessons. And I teach every week different lessons. You can Google my name, and if you go Feldenkrais Vermont, I can put it in the chat. You can also sign up for classes with me. Turner, who can't be here today, Turner Osler, the founder of the method, comes every week to my classes. And he is he's a big fan of the Feldenkrais method. And you can also find other Feldenkrais practitioners maybe in your area. I happen to be in Vermont, and this is actually how we started Course 360. Started out because Turner came to my classes, and in these classes, he was exposed to to a movable chair. And he said, like, well, I want to have that everybody can have a chair like that. So the initial idea was really from a Feldenkrais lesson. And if you want to know more about Feldenkrais, I can talk at another time, or you can read up on it on my website. You can come to my classes, and you can shoot me also, like, if you want to email me, I put it also in the chat about that. Good.
I'll say that my Core 360 feels different just having you walk through these things. I mean, I'm
Right.
sitting on it feeling differently.
Right. And it's most likely that the chair has not changed so much. It's more
Oh,
like,
no.
you know, that you
Yeah,
you have
absolutely.
have the way how you sit and organize your sitting on the chair has changed. And the lovely thing about this is not, even though that you have moved with so much attention and awareness, you know, some of it is still oblique to us. Like we don't know exactly why is this now, but for most people, they feel better and they take that and say, oh, this is a big step, like, you know, in my comfort, and I want to get better. Yeah. Most people who get a Core 360 are motivated to improve their well-being, you know. Any other questions, comments? Yes, Mira.
Thank
Mirna?
you.
Mira, hey.
I want to thank you for doing this. I also think my chair was way too high.
All right.
You get uncomfortable. It's incredibly stable at this point.
Right. You touched on an important aspect that I also see people talking in my consultations, and that is that they say, oh, I'm kind of like, I have it at a certain setting and I may feel over time it comes uncomfortable, but I'm kind of stick it out, or there's a model, like a picture that I saw that it should be so high or so, and then I'm following that. The most important thing is that you follow your own comfort. Yeah. You are the expert for yourself. Yeah. So if you feel it is for me more comfortable to lower my chair a bit, then do that. So don't go by just like a model who said like, oh, it should be 115 degrees or stuff like that. You have your own personal history, your own story, and your nervous system. When we experience pain and discomfort is a signal from the nervous system to say, change something, do something different, and not grind through it. This is an approach that is often in athletics being used, but it doesn't help in the learning aspect. If we into finding more comfort, we have to learn to respect the information that we get from our nervous system and act accordingly. Yeah, and one way is then maybe we can change the height of the desk. We can change, maybe some people can change the height of their of the desk. Some people with the Core 360, you can change the height of the chair in most models, at least. Yeah, and bring it to a height that's comfortable, but also where you feel balanced. We also have, beside this last part of today's lesson, where I taught you a little bit, like, you know, with the hand on top and the other one, we have those in pre-recordings also on our website. You can go there and you can do these lessons where I teach like a group of 3 people, like through these movement sequences. We have other movement sequences there, small little exercises, 3 to 8 minutes long, where you can find more comfort with your chair. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Thanks for the question.
It's a wonderful company. That you're not just transactional. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a comment also like here, the focus on adding the chest to the flexion and extension movement was very helpful. This is something that I see quite often in my practice as a Feldenkrais practitioner, in my group work, but also in my private hands-on work, that we often blame our neck or our lower back for, because this is where the discomfort often shows up for people. And then we think, hey, we need to stretch or to strengthen that area. But often I can see when I work with people, it's not that these areas are quote unquote weak. It is more that we overuse them and that there are other parts of ourselves we don't use enough. In particular, this big, let me get a model, 1 second. Let me get the model of the spine, 1 second. So this is the model of a human spine with the bottom here is the pelvis. These are the vertebrae, 24 vertebrae all the way up, and here sits the head, right? And what we did today, we were moving the pelvis, and also like when you move the pelvis on from the pelvis on the chair, it gets movement into your spine, right? And not only movement here into the lower spine, but we want to get movement through the entire length of the spine. What I see happening often is that people overuse their neck. Yeah, you move a lot here, but this part where the ribs are attached, these vertebrae move very little. Yeah, or they move a lot in the lower back, but not this central part. 12 vertebrae are here. So when we get those parts of ourselves more into the movement picture and into the whole movement, then the movement is more distributed over the entire length of the spine. And often the discomfort in the neck and in the lower back improves quite a bit. And not because we have focused on that area, but we have brought attention to other areas around them that they can be of support. I hope that makes sense, or it is at least in your experience that maybe you felt the most really the difference in, oh, what happens here in my back and my chest here. Yeah. Other more questions, comments, things you want to know? There's a question of how often should we do these exercises? It's really a question of comfort. Yeah. If there is no rule saying, oh, you have to do them every day. Yeah. But there is no way saying you should not do them once in a while. Like, so really go by your own comfort. You will see the more often you do them, you will improve overall. But the important thing is that you bring attention to yourself, like that you begin to sense and that you use the sensing of yourself to get information so that you feel more and more comfortable. Yeah? The core 360 is an important, or can be an important part of getting more movement into our life, and also movement we're not used to. Yeah, getting us outside of our movement habits a bit. And so you can do these exercises, you know, when you feel you're getting a little bit uncomfortable, see if one of those exercises will help you. Yeah. You're all going to get the recording of today's lesson. So you can definitely also do like the first part where you were laying on your back. You can practice that. Let me also again like apologize for the technical difficulties. There were way more people who have signed up. It was a mistake from our end to get it started in the right room. So I know some people are checking out and they have other things happening. Any final questions, things that you want to know? Everybody's good?
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you all. I highly appreciate it. So we are coming back for another class. If you had a good experience today, well, why not come back for another one? Yeah, they are free and they will hopefully help you to improve how you move. And we have the next one. Let me just make sure that I have it in my,
Is it tomorrow?
no, it's not tomorrow, not tomorrow, not tomorrow.
On the 12th?
On the 12th. On the 12th, it's going to be in the evening, also to serve people who are on the West Coast who cannot make an early meeting like this. It's going to be at 8 o'clock in the evening on Wednesday, the 12th. And then we have another one on Monday, July 17th at 4 o'clock. All these times that I'm giving you are Eastern Standard Time. Good. So I hope you will be able to join us next time. And thank you very much, particularly also like the people who were so willing like to put the camera on. That helps me, that helps other people to get an idea about the movement. And I hope to see you back then.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.